am best-selling author and motivational speaker Marissa F. Cohen, and stay tuned. Taped with Rabbi Doug is next.
We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug on your TV tonight. But Daddy, I want to watch Monday Night Football.
Forget about Monday Night Football. There's no other thing we're going to watch on Monday but Rabbi Doug.
Yeah, Rabbi Doug on TV tonight. We're going to see Rabbi Doug. Oh, everybody talk about Doug.
Shalom, welcome to Taped with Rabbi Doug. Glad you could be with us today. I am so happy to have with me today Marissa Cohen. She is a motivational speaker and author, and she is a Buffalo Grove, Illinois native, and she is the founder of Healing from Emotional Abuse Philosophy and the award-winning and 5-time best-selling author whose titles include Breaking Through the Silence, Their Journey to Surviving Sexual Assault. This is her first book right here, and she has written 16 books altogether and released them, a number of bestsellers. Number 1 bestseller, Breaking Through the Silence, Me Too. Another bestseller, there you go, thank you. The Rue Approach, Healing from Abuse, and the Healing from Emotional Abuse Philosophy, The 3 Keys to Overcome Narcissism, the 5 must-know tips for nurses to feel prepared and confident when working with domestic violence victims, and so many other books. As a founder of the Healing from Emotional Abuse Philosophy, she has created a 3-key method of overcoming narcissism and narcissistic abuse. Amazing. She's been named the top 10 most inspirational female entrepreneurs on International Women's Day 2021. Shared the stage with many other famous people. Her podcast, Healing from Emotional Abuse, has charted top 10 globally around the world, including Israel. And she is just someone that you'd want to know and read about. And we thought that's a good reason to have her on Taped with Rabbi Doug. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to start out because I really never had anyone in your field on my show as a one-on-one guest before. And so that right now is a very important thing. Secondly, how do you get into motivational speaking to begin with? And how did you get into your subject of abuse being the subject? And how did you run all that forward into writing and into a podcast? So I know it's a lot of questions to ask at first, but I thought it's better coming from you to explain kind of the process that came along. And here you are, you travel the world speaking to people, and you know, people go out and say, oh, motivational speakers talk about making money, and motivational speakers talk about how to invest, and motivational speakers talk about how to feel good about yourselves. You talk about really how to overcome things in your motivational speaking. Tell me how it all came about.
Sure. So, personal story. I started college and immediately had an abusive relationship. The first person that I met, the first real boyfriend that I had, was very abusive. It started out very charming, very thoughtful, very generous, and then would just kind of slowly falter, and he started pointing out my flaws and nitpicking at me and making me feel bad.
You don't have any flaws, come on.
Everybody has flaws, and that's okay. You know, you just have to find somebody who loves you for your flaws. He did not. He was trying to control me, he was trying to manipulate me, and everything that he did was in an effort to have power and control over me.
So let me ask you a question, because this is something that happens to a lot of people, especially college-age people, maybe later years of high school, but especially college-age people when you're away, living in a dorm or living in an apartment, and you're not around your parents, you don't have that safety net. How long did it take you to realize that?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was abusive until years after I left. So we never learned about what red flags look like. We never learned about what abusive relationships are or what they look like. So I thought, because this was my first experience with a real relationship, that this was normal, that what he was saying was because he respected me and loved me and wanted me to be better. And that was just his tough love way of showing it. Now that's not true, and I know that's not true now. Again, what he was doing was to have power and control over me, manipulate me, and make me feel small so he could control me. But had we learned about what healthy and toxic relationship looks like before that, I would have been more capable of seeing the red flags and seeing the problematic areas of the relationship.
Sure. Now before you went into your whole career in your life, did you feel the after effects of that relationship for a long time?
Absolutely. It changed the way that I perceived love. It changed the way that I accepted love. So instead of looking for somebody healthy that made me feel good, I looked for people that matched what he did because that's what felt more comfortable. So directly after him was a guy who was so sweet and so nice and went out of his way to make me feel safe and comfortable, but because I was so used to being yelled at and demeaned, when this new guy would get upset with me, he would want to have a conversation, and I felt like he didn't love me because he wasn't yelling at me and making me feel bad. So it skewed the way that I actually think about relationships, which put me in positions to be in additional abusive relationships afterwards.
Wow. So tell me where it all led to.
Sure. So after I started to realize what was happening, which was years again after I had left him, I was in a research group with a professor of mine, and I was her research assistant, and her entire thing was about sexual assault on college campuses. And so it became my job to find people to interview for her documentary. And that's when I started to see how common it was and how people I had known for 15 years had experienced things similar to what I had with abuse and sexual trauma from partners while I was friends with them, but we never spoke about it.
So since you were doing this interviewing and stuff, you went to people you knew first?
Yes, and I shared my story with them because I wanted them to know what I was working on, and then they would share a story back with me. And when I started to realize how common it was and how people I'd known forever had experienced this stuff and never spoke about it, it really inspired me to talk to more people, to write my first book about it, to share my experiences, but also share the experiences of other people so that anyone who read the book can feel relatable and understand that they're not alone. And that just kept leading me to more books and a podcast and ultimately a career in speaking.
Tell me about how you related this to your parents. Did you relate it to them during that first relationship, after that first relationship, or while you were doing these interviews and said, oh, Mom and Dad, you wouldn't believe what I realized while I'm doing what I'm doing for school?
So when I was writing that book, I knew that eventually my parents were going to see it and hear my story. And right before I launched my first book, right before it got published, I sat my mom down and had a one-on-one conversation with her, and I told her everything. But so my relationship was when I was 19. That book came out when I was 26.
Wow. So for a long time you kept it in.
For a long time I kept it from them. I didn't want my parents to feel like they could have done something to stop it or like it was their fault. So I was more trying to protect them in my head, when realistically I should have just told them right from the beginning. But again, I didn't know.
So one of the things I haven't asked you is, do you have siblings?
I do.
Do you have younger siblings?
I do.
So, were you in the mode of protecting your siblings when they went to college from the same things happening to them that happened to you?
So I have a little brother, and my little brother was one of the first people that I told. And that was only because he happened to see me crying on the staircase one day when I thought nobody was home. So I told him everything. And from there, I don't think I ever had to worry about him being abused because he just is a very strong person. And him seeing and hearing what I went through probably made him more aware of how to treat people. But we were more concerned with making sure he was treating people, his partners, with respect and with love and support, and not doing to them what had been done to me. And so we were very direct in telling him, do this, do not do this. This is how you talk to somebody, this is not how you talk to somebody. If you're upset, this is what you do, versus getting angry and punching a wall, which he had never done.
When I introduced you, I talked about that you have a podcast Tell me the title of your podcast again.
Healing from Emotional Abuse.
Healing from Emotional Abuse. Do you interview people on that podcast? Do you present scenarios in the podcast? What do you do in your podcast that you think is beneficial for your listeners?
Sure. So my podcast is very conversational. I bring people on who have experienced all different types of abuse and sexual trauma, and we talk very candidly about what they experienced, how they healed, where they are now, and advice from them to people who might still be going through it. And so the realness and like the true candid conversation, it's filled with raw emotion, but it presents it in a way that we never really spoke about it before. Because it was such a taboo, very private, guilt-ridden topic, people kept these stories in for 70 years, you know? I've interviewed people who I was the first person they told and they were 75 years old. It happened when they were a child.
So you're young and you're married young. Was it hard to get into that like real deep, close relationship, because there was always that fear that somewhere deep down there might be a tinge of something that's left over in you that might not be ready for a commitment? Was that something that was going through your head when you got into your relationship with your husband before the two of you got engaged and got married?
So before we got married, I had dated many people and done a lot of self-work and realized where, you know, it was still impacting how I trusted, the walls I built, how I reacted, because I would be lying if I said I didn't absorb some of the toxic behaviors that my exes had shown me. For example, I was not able to emote, like I couldn't cry after my first abusive relationship for years. Because when I would cry, he would call me weak and make me feel bad. So when I ultimately had found my husband and started dating him, I had already gone through a lot of different ups and downs and a lot of lessons, but I came in and made it very clear that this was something that had happened to me, and there will be side effects and there will be triggers and there will be moments where I'm going to need him to support me and just understand that this is out of my control. And he's been an excellent partner and done nothing but support me on this journey and me sharing my story, but also in private moments when I'm having a bad day, because they do still happen, or I'm having a depressive episode, because those do still happen.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So did you have relationships also with really good guys and you just didn't click? Did those things happen too, and did those leave, positive emotions with you that you said, yeah, I can be the right guy, because there are good guys out there?
Absolutely. There are fantastic guys out there. And this is not a male versus female issue at all. Anybody can experience abuse and sexual trauma, and anybody can perpetrate it. So I don't want to gender it either.
Well, even if it's not sexual abuse, verbal abuse is just as bad and can have the same lingering effects on someone emotionally. So it really wouldn't matter in that way, but that you had positive experiences certainly leaves a good feeling inside to say it is possible and I can still look.
Yes, absolutely. So there were two men that I dated before my husband who were incredible partners and really helped me overcome a lot of the trauma and the triggers that I had experienced. Both of them are still great friends of mine. We didn't work out for other reasons, personality things or life journey things, but they're wonderful humans and I wish them nothing but the best always.
That's very cool, very cool. So tell me about getting up in front of an audience. You know, here we are, we're right now in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and you're talking to them. How did your talk start? And feel free to talk to the audience and share how you open your conversations and, you know, going out and do your motivational speaking, because in this audience there are a lot of people who've experienced what you experienced and brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. The way I started this was through sharing my experiences with friends and strangers, and you know, that was really helpful for me to be able to get it out. The first time I spoke about it, I felt very validated, and that was incredible. I usually start my programs and my speaking by sharing my story, which I shared a little bit today. And then we talk about whatever the audience is looking for. So a lot of times we'll discuss red flags. Jealousy is a huge red flag that we constantly overlook, because jealousy is possessive. If somebody's jealous of you, they're trying to possess your time, what you're doing, who you are with, what you are eating, what you are wearing. That's possessiveness. So jealousy is a big problem. Gaslighting is another huge issue. Manipulation and gaslighting. It's redirecting and re-scripting situations to make you look crazy, to make you feel crazy, and then you don't trust yourself anymore. And then all of a sudden, this other person has mind control over you, and anything that they say feels more real than the things that you've really experienced. And that's incredibly problematic, right? Because that control, you need to be in control of yourself, and you need to be in control of your decision making, and have a partner that supports you in that. Right? My partner, no matter what, always has my back. That was something that I was very clear about from the beginning, was that I will always be the one in charge of my decisions, and I need you to weigh in when I ask, when it's appropriate, but never tell me what I need to do, because the control had been taken out of my life for so many years that now that I have the confidence to make those decisions and to feel the way I feel and to emote in the way that I need to, I don't want that taken away from me again.
Wow, 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 wow. So somebody comes to you privately and they say, you know, I have this problem. It could be a guy or a girl, by the way, but they come to you privately after one of your presentations and say, I'm in this relationship and we break up, and 2 weeks later I'm back with them every time. I just don't know where to go or who to be with. That's all I've got, and I feel like I have to go back there. What do I do? Marissa, give me some advice.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you've had this before, and that's why I bring it to your attention and ask you that question, because I've been asked that question before, certainly. And what do you tell them?
There are a lot of things that you can do. The first thing I always do is just listen. I listen to their story, what they need to tell me. And in a scenario like that, I would tell them, don't leave until you're ready. And I mean, like, ready, financially ready, you know, you have a set plan. I have a safety planning guide I'm happy to email to you for anybody who needs it. It is a 16-page all-encompassing safety plan. It gets you, you know, numbers and locations and exact places to go and lists of things to bring and all kinds of materials and preparation so that when you are ready to leave safely, you can do that safely.
info@tvrabbi.com. Send me an email from Marissa. I will forward it to her, and I know she'll send that to you personally. That would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so has that worked out for a lot of people?
Yes. After every speaking event, I usually have at least one person come up to me and say something like what you did, where they want to get out but they don't know how, and I would help them find resources in their area. But the safety planning is really important, because if you are in an abusive relationship, the most dangerous time is leaving. That is taking the abuser's control away from them. And that's what they thrive on, right? Power and control. So you want to be fully and totally prepared so that you never have to go back. People who are in these relationships go back an average of 7 times before they leave for good. And the fatality rate can be really high. The more times you go back, the more dangerous it becomes. The person starts to get really tense. It increases the amount of explosions and altercations. So you want to definitely be as prepared as you can the day you decide to leave, so that you never have to look back. You never feel like you have to go back, because you're just increasing the danger.
So you are not far above college age, and so I know a lot of people who are in school right now are relating to you just because of your age and your experience. That's where relationships often go wrong, because people are trying to focus on school and they get into a relationship and it's the only other thing besides school that they have, and things go wrong. What are your advice for dating for college students? What's your advice as far as someone who's a serious student, serious about college, a good student? What's your advice? Is your advice, and I'm just going to ask you some questions and you'll excuse me for going that route, is your advice save the dating till after you're finished with school? Or is your advice, don't get into a relationship and do only casual dating while you're doing that? Or only go with groups of friends until until after finals, or until you're graduated, or during summer break, or things like that? How do you stay a good student in school without a bad relationship getting in the way of your school and ruining your 4.0 grade average?
So I would recommend encouraging people to date. That's how we learn about ourselves. It's how we learn about our likes and our dislikes, our needs. I think that dating is a really important part of the college experience, and it's an important part of finding yourself. So I think if you find somebody that's interesting to you, absolutely date them, but follow your gut. If something feels wrong, it's wrong. Your body is telling you that something is wrong. So if they do something like if they're mean to a waiter, or if they're always texting when you're talking to them and it makes you feel bad, listen to your gut and know that those behaviors are wrong. They make you feel uncomfortable. And also listen to your friends, because your friends have your back. The people that you love, whose opinions you respect, they'll tell you how they feel about your partner. And they'll see things that you won't see because we have love blinders. And so if they're telling you, I don't like that person for you, they make me uncomfortable, their vibe is off, listen to them. You don't necessarily have to act in accordance with what they're saying, but just be open to listening. It's really, really important that you have a strong support system around you and that you engage them so that you keep yourself safe and vice versa.
Devil's advocate, okay?
Sure.
But it's because you're jealous because I have a relationship and you don't. How do you come back on that when you're the friend that cares?
If you're the friend that cares and they're saying that to you, just know that it's really probably not personal. It's more likely them feeling insecure in their relationship. The best position to take as a friend of a person going through an abusive relationship, as difficult as this is just be there for them, right? If you start trying to pull them away or saying nasty things about their partner and they've already shown you that they're not listening, it's worthless for you to get upset over that because you're not helping them, you're not helping you. You are in a very helpless position, and so knowing that if you step too far, they'll push you out of their life completely, that could be more problematic when they want to leave. So take a step back if you need to, take some deep breaths, don't hang out or spend as much time with that person anymore until they're ready to leave that relationship. But the best position you could take as a family member, a sibling, a friend of somebody who is experiencing an abusive relationship is just to be there for support.
Great. So let's have Marissa's great opinion on dating apps. So, you know, in the Jewish community, everybody knows J-Date. For the Orthodox community, there's a few. There's one called Fromster for people who are observant, to meet other observant people and stuff. What do you think about dating apps? What do you think about people going on dating apps? Or do you think they should be avoided completely? What's your opinion about them as the motivational speaker about the possibilities of abuse? Because you don't know who you're meeting. You're coming. What are the steps to take before meeting someone that you're talking to on a dating app? Where do you go with it? Or do you think they should be avoided?
I don't think they should be avoided. I think there are 1,000,001 ways to meet somebody and you never know who you're going to meet. Just go in knowing that there's a chance that person won't be who they say they are. If you need to, take a friend or a family member with you. I used to have friends come and sit at a different table when I started dating again after my abusive guys. I would have a friend sit at another table so that they could observe and make sure that everything was okay. And I said the same thing to a friend of mine who is in the United States from Brazil on a working visa. And she was meeting up with somebody that she met online on a dating app. And I said, bring your friends. They can sit with you at the table, they can sit at another table, but do not go alone. You never know who that person is. But I fully and firmly believe that putting yourself out there is really important. That's how you meet people. And if you enter into a situation already jaded, already closed off, you're robbing yourself of the opportunity of meeting somebody who could be an incredible person, who could change your life, could be your perfect partner, or could be a great friend. I think that all of that is just, it's a part of the human experience.
Okay, so another question. I have a lot, and we're running out of time, but what about work relationships? What about you're working with someone? You know, you work with someone, you get to know, you first meet them, you're like, eh, then you get to know them, they kind of grow on you, and all of a sudden, you know, you didn't even think they were attractive. Not only did they grow on you with their personality, but all of a sudden they're attractive in your eyes compared to when you first met them. Do you think that's something worth pursuing, or if it's putting your job in jeopardy, is it something you should avoid even allowing? What's your opinion about workplace relationships or workplace dating?
Workplace relationships get a little dicey because it can impact your life. It can impact, you know, your job, your career. So I'm a little hesitant, well, I was very hesitant from having inter-workplace relationships for myself. I think it's unfair for me to definitively say do it or don't do it because I don't know, it's very individual.
Sure.
But I would say before you enter into anything like that, weigh out the pros and cons, weigh out the potential consequences, have conversations with that person and lay it out and say, you know, if this doesn't work out, we need to either do X, Y, or Z, right?
Yeah.
We either need to completely avoid each other, we need to have conversations to make sure that we're still both okay and comfortable in the work environment, or maybe one of us should have an exit strategy. But having those conversations and that communication is really the key. With any relationship, communication is the key. If you can't communicate with your partner, if you can't have conversations that are difficult, it's probably not the right person for you.
In the last couple of minutes we have, I wanted to come and have you think about 16 books you've written in a short time since 2017, your first book, right?
Yes.
So many books you've written. What is, do you think, the best advice you've ever given? What is the best advice you've given, and what do you think is the most moving piece of advice that people have used that you've given?
I've never put this in a book. My biggest piece of advice is very simple. It's talk about it. Tell people what you went through. Tell people what you're experiencing. It can be people you're close to, a friend or a family member. It can be a community member. It can be a total stranger. But the more you hold these stories, these experiences in, the more toxic it is. It actually causes physiological health concerns. The toxicity of holding in these deep, dark emotions can actually cause chronic pain. It can cause headaches and migraines. It causes heart issues, and it's been correlated to breast cancer. So looking at it like that, talking about it can be emotionally therapeutic and healing, but also physically healing. The more you talk about it, the more you'll realize how common it is, how relatable you are, the less alone you'll feel, the more support you'll get, the more validation you'll get. It changed my whole life the first time I spoke about it.
Very cool, very cool. So before we go, just some quick questions about Marissa. Where did you have your bat mitzvah?
Buffalo Grove in Betham.
Betham, very good. I know a lot of people there. No, because I taught a lot of people in Buffalo Grove, as you know, and Stevenson kids and stuff like that. But do you stay in touch? Here's my question, why I said. Do you stay in touch with people you were friends with when you were in elementary school, middle school? Are you still in touch with those friends too?
I am. I still see them all the time.
It's so cool. That's so cool. Well, I want to wish you so much success with all your books, you know, starting with Breaking Through the Silence, The Journey to Surviving Sexual Assault. Marissa F. Cohen, she's amazing, an amazing speaker, an amazing motivator, and someone with great advice. Thank you for being on the show. I hope we'll have you on again sometime in the future and talk more about these subjects. I want to thank all of you for being with us. Remember, you can check out our website, www.tvrabbi.com, where you can also see former shows on the web. If you want to send an email to Marissa, once again, info@tvrabbi.com. I will forward it to her, and I know she'll get back to you. And we hope to see you all next time, right here on Taped with Rabbi Doug. Shalom, everyone.
Well, he's the rabbi for me. Anytime you need, you're gonna get married or you're gonna die. Gonna see Rabbi Doug. Gonna see Rabbi Doug. Gonna see Rabbi Doug. Gonna see Rabbi Doug on the TV tonight.
This has been a Taped with Rabbi Doug production.